Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Kate Richburg, and it is time for Beadshop Live here at beadshop.com. So, welcome, everybody. It's great to see that everyone's jumping on. We've got people watching from all over the world, which I just love. Janice is over on our YouTube channel doing some moderating, and of course, our Gita is over on Facebook, and she just mentioned that there is snow over there in Denmark. So it's a balmy, I don't know, it's a little overcast here in California. I'm back in our offices. So the Bay Area weather is nice today. I'm going to put on some lotion while I talk and chat because I realized that let's put on a little lotion and get these hands ready to go, shall we? So today, you guys, if you opened your newsletter, you saw that I had a new um, necklace to share with you. And it's one that I've named Miami. I've never been to Miami, actually. But if I were to go, this is what I would wear on the sandy beaches of beautiful Miami, Florida. I don't know. I feel that it has kind of a, I don't know, a Cuban flair a little bit, the Art Deco look of the traditional architecture in Miami, these fun colors, and so that's what I went with. So that's what I named it. So let me show you. I'm going to put this up on this neck, and then I'm going to show it to you. She's quite a stunner, I think, and it's my take on our Odyssey. You can see that there, our Odyssey necklace. And I'm going to lay it down flat so you can see it. But I wanted you to really see this tassel is super lush. And that's kind of what this piece kind of hinges around. As I was designing it and as I was having it come together, there we go. That's a little more even. Straighten it out there. There we go. The tassel is what compelled me to do this first. Okay, and let me go ahead. I'm going to move the camera so you can see that tassel kind of up close. So bear with me here. Let me get that going. So here's a close-up of the tassel that you guys can see. And I've got some other pieces here that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But I wanted you to see this section. Now, you may remember, I don't know, it was a while back, Janice did a piece in our Odyssey series. And our Odyssey series, the basis of that design is our wax linen. And we just launched some new colors of wax linen. So that's why I used it for this piece. Though you don't have to use wax linen. You could also use Ceylon as well. But do you guys remember this piece of Janice's that she did a while back? Let me move this over a bit. And Janice, would you drop the name of it in the chat so I don't call it the wrong thing? But this piece was, I'm going to show you. Let me go back to my camera here. This was just one really long, super long piece. And she used our Padre beads and she did a color gradation of them. And so it has this 1.25 inch ring on the end. And the way this wraps, it's kind of like a scarf, right? So I wanted to give a nod to Janice's kind of amazing piece that she did. And so here, let me take off this scarf and it'll be easier for you guys to see. So here is this piece that JP made. And you can see here's the ring. It's the Rainbow Odyssey. That's what it is. And it can wrap around your neck once like this. And these ends can just go in like so, right? Beautiful. Really a beautiful piece like this. Or it can be worn, you know, longer or whatever. But I wanted to have a tassel kind of a feel to this without doing this long piece. I wanted to do a little bit of a different take. So what I did, and the way that this fits, and it's really adaptable to, let me just put that right there for now. It's really adaptable to a lot of different lengths. And I'll show you the measurements as we kind of break this piece down. But you can see this tassel is meant to wear kind of high up, and you can adjust the length however it works for you. There we go. That's probably about where I want to wear it. I'll have to look at it a little bit more. But you can see how this piece kind of, you know, you can sit it up high or you can pull it down a little bit lower as well, however you like wearing it. Okay. But so it has a similar feel to it. And you don't have to, let me get this back here. If you just want to do the tassel and maybe suspend this from some leather or something like this, you could do that. But I wanted to go all in with this pattern and with this design. So you can see, let me pull this up a bit. You can see it's pretty, it has a lot of visual impact, or as we like to say around here, curb appeal. Right? I think it's fun. Gita's asked to see my earrings. So yes, I have a couple of things to show you at the end of the broadcast. So I'll show you the earrings I'm wearing, and then I've got something else to show you that's going to debut tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. So, oh, Rosario, you are in Miami Beach at this very moment. It's a place that I've always wanted to visit. Such a rich history of Miami and beautiful architecture, wonderful people I hear. So hello to you. Thanks for tuning in. Someday I'll get down there, but I've always wanted to go. So you can see here I have kind of laid out the tassel portion, and the tassel is what I did first with this piece. So let me measure it for you. Finally, I found my measuring tape over here. And those tassel legs, they're about 6 inches, so they're pretty long and luscious. You can decide how long you want these tassels to be, but again, I wanted that visual impact to be pretty big. And then can you see how here on the bottom of the tassels, The tassels all aren't the exact same size. And as I was stringing the first couple of tassel legs, I was like, well, do I want to make them exactly the same? And then I thought, oh, they're kind of running into each other. So let me get a little closer here, right? And you guys can see how they don't all quite match up. And can you also see how I've got a little bit of the wax linen here at the bottom, just to kind of add a little bit of flair at the end? So I use two beads. I use the melon drops, and then I use the new faceted ovals. And I thought by going back and forth between the ovals and the melons, it would give a little bit of visual texture to this design so they all wouldn't be exactly the same, right? And I made them different lengths so that they wouldn't all run into each other. So that's what works for me. Terry is saying those tassels are entirely peacock-esque. I'm glad you kind of picked up on that because I really wanted to do some kind of shaded tones. If you guys are following my social media, you're following my I'll call it an Odyssey. I guess it's my working with Fair Isle knitting, right? And in Fair Isle, it's all about the shading, right? To make your eye pop. So I think dabbling in other crafts, not only, doing beadwork, but other crafts as well, sometimes it spills over, into what you're making. And so I think that my Fair Isle forays have spilled over into this design. So you can see, let me get a little tighter up here. You can see and actually I want to turn this over because I want these lark's head knots. This side would actually be the front. Now I'm going to show you how I tie this and everything. But I'm going to talk about the design kind of first. So you can see I used 4 different colors of the wax linen thread, 4 different ones. And I used 2 strands, which result in 4 strands of a tassel leg. Now, you can make this tassel, like I said, as lush or as, slim as you'd like, right? It just depends on your design. Adapt it to what works for you. But you can see in the wax linen, I've got the royal blue, I've got the teal, I've got the denim, and I've got the sage. Now, the royal blue is the new color that we just added. And that's the royal blue right there. And we added some other new colors that I think you're going to like as well, some really pretty ones. And you can kind of mix and match the different color combos. And so that's what I started when I started to design this piece. I actually started with the colors of my wax linen. Okay. Then I went from there and I chose my cubes. Now, Barbara is saying, or no, who said that? Terry is saying that. She said she's also thrilled to see an alternate use for cube beads. They are kind of a puzzler sometimes. And, Terry, I agree. Sometimes I feel like cubes don't always fit together exactly like I want them to, I guess, when I'm stringing or if I'm doing seed bead work or something with them. But you can see here they're knotted on these legs of the thread. And I think they add a little bit of texture like this, right? And so this thread, again, this thread is meant to show, and I just kind of shaded the thread from this dark blue going all the way over to this sage green. And so I didn't match, pardon me, I didn't match the cube. You can see I didn't match the cube to the thread. Oh, let me get a little bit closer here. I kind of tried to enhance the color of the thread with the cube. So what I used, starting over on this side, this left side, this is the matte silver line teal, and this is the SB3, so it's a little smaller. the SB3 cube. That's the matte silverline teal. Then I went to the SB4, the 263, the seafoam crystal lined. And so I wanted, something that had a little bit of transparency to it. And then I went continuing on my transparent kick here, this transparent seafoam, which I just really love that color glass all the way across. And then I finished with another SB3. It's the matte metallic khaki iris, one of my favorite beads or colors in all seed beads. So that's kind of how I shaded it. So I had some transparent, some opaque, some metallic, some clear. So I just mixed it up a little bit. Visually, especially when you look at this photo of the piece, it feels like this strand and this strand, those colors kind of stand out a little bit. So that's why I think they work really well, kind of flanking, I guess, to the left and to the right. And then I have those shaded ones in the center. So those are all things that I thought about when I was designing this. Then I thought I would unify the tassel. Okay. So everything at the bottom of the tassel is the same. Let me get a little closer in there too. You can see this color here of the melon and the drop. They're very similar. Shapes are a little bit different, so it gives it a little more of a, I don't know, visual interest, so they're not all exactly the same. But I unified them with this 5mm rondelle, and that 5mm rondelle that I used, I'll tell you, is the Sky Blue Picasso. And again, it's not the exact color match to any of these, but I think that all of these blues match together very well, so that's what I used. I needed a little bit of metal in this, so I used the Tirahishi in the silver, and then I used this coil spacer right there in the antique silver, which I think just, I don't know, again, adds a little bit of a texture. Whoops, sorry. Janice is saying that it feels very vintage with this Picasso sky blue. And it is. It is kind of a very vintage kind of feeling piece to it. So let me give you another kind of bird's eye view of this piece. And I want to show you kind of the difference. You can see the shading of the strands here, right, with the beads on them. In Janice's piece, and this is another way that you could go about it, I'm just going to kind of lay it here. She used to really unify this theme. She used all the same color of thread. Can you see that there? Let me get that a little tighter so you can see the thread differences. So you could, just use one thread color. Like if you're really partial to one of these blues, right? And then you can kind of ombre or make the beads kind of the color story. And using a thread that is just one color, you might have, what do I want to say? It'll be more of a background for your other beads, more of an accent, right? If that makes sense. But here, when I got the beads kind of color blocked, and then I've got the thread being multiple colors, the thread really, those different thread colors really show. I don't know, I'm not explaining it very well, but you can see it just right there on the screen, right? How it really brings kind of the beads forward, especially these beads are all opaque and the pops of color are a little bit more, but if that makes sense. Let me see, I'm looking at the comments here. Bear with me here just a second. So Gita is asking, let me show here. Kate, did you think about which thread to use for which color beads, or did you just close your eyes and do it? You know how I do this, Gita, right? So it was a little bit of both. You know, I went and I had the threads and I laid the threads out, and I chose this while I was here in the office, which made it a little bit easier. And so I came in and I wanted the beads to all kind of read blue, right? But I wanted them to have some subtle variation. And so I tried to match, like this khaki kind of has some sage in it. This was the most saturated color of all of them, so I put it with the most saturated thread color. So it had a little bit of thinking behind it, but not so much that it was overly taxing on my brain. Okay, but I really love, Janice used, I think this is Country Red that she used for this. And the red, I think, is so unexpected here. Okay, I mean, there's not a ton. Let me pull this camera up. Let me turn this to the side. Get a few more of those beads in there. There's not a ton of red in this piece, right? But there is now, because of that Country Red wax linen. So, you know, sometimes finding a starting point, you know, it gives you a vision for the whole piece. And especially if the thread's going to show in this piece, using the thread as your starting point, I think, is kind of an interesting way to design. Okay, so I really like this shimmer of this piece as well. So let me put Janice's aside and let me talk to you a little bit more about designing with this piece. So as I was thinking about doing the necklace portion of this, I wanted, you can see the tassel visually, it's like heavier, right? Because it's all cubes. And I wanted the necklace portion of this to be a little lighter, right? On the tassels, there are 16 tassel legs here, right? Up here in the necklace, 2, 4, 6, there's 8 strands per side. So it's thinner just by way that I used fewer strands up here. But I also wanted to introduce a couple more beads that weren't cubes. Okay. Oh, thanks, Lorraine, my arm candy. I'm going to talk about this little beauty in a bit as well, so don't let me forget that. So you can see here are the cubes. And so what I did here in the tassel, these are 2 long strands that I doubled over, right, to create 4. Here, what I did was I just cut 1 long strand and doubled it over. So can you see, let me unknot this. And I used the same color beads on the strand up in the necklace that I used in the tassel. Okay, so you can see this one has the teal. It's the same one, the teal here. But I didn't want to do 2 of the teal, so I introduced, and I don't use these as much as I should. This is the 1.8 millimeter cube, and I think that one is patina, matte metallic patina iris, and it is the 1.8 millimeter cube. I just love these, and matte patina iris just sends me over. I love it so much. So that one of these strands was the regular, and then one was that new bead that I introduced. Okay. Then I went along and I added the seafoam lined. So here's that seafoam lined right here. And can you see also how I'm leaving a little more thread in between, that it's not quite as compact as it was in the tassel? And then to match that one, I used a seed bead. I thought, you know what? why not get a seed bead in there? It'll break it up visually a little bit. This color is still pretty luminous and luscious. What I used was the gray luster. It's the 8-1865 in an A-dot. You can see, and there's a ton of them in here. So I figured if I started to run out of cubes, I could add a bunch of this. Even throughout, I could have, to kind of extend the beads, because I just used one tube of each of these cubes. And I'll tell you a little trick that you're going to do so you don't actually make the goof that I did, but I'll point that out in a second. So that was the pair. Whoops, it was in the where is it? It was in the blue. Oh, and I'm sorry, I lied. I did the cubes on this teal. And then here comes the seafoam cube, not the seafoam lined. That's on the denim. And then I added that A-dot. And then I finished with the khaki, metallic khaki cube, and another strand of those A-dots. So it makes it a little lighter feeling, right? A little bit more thread on there. And so as I was stringing the second half of this necklace, okay, right, I completed the whole tassel, and then I went up, I added my threads, and I completed this side. And then I started to string this side, and I realized I was running out of beads, right? So what I should have done, and what I'll tell you to do, go ahead and string the tassel, right? Then with your leftover beads, what I want you to do is split those in half. So half of them will go to one side and the other half will go to the other side, so that when you're stringing the second side, you don't start running out of beads like I did. And so what I did, which side is it? So maybe I did that side first. And I think this, is this the second side? Now I can't tell. Now I can't find my goof, which is probably a good thing. Let me see. Maybe I shouldn't have told you at all. No, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. See this one right here? Can you see how I started with the seafoam cubes right here? And then I was like, oh gosh, I don't have enough. So I started leaving more and more thread in between them. And then I'm like, oh gosh, I have a few seafoam lined ones. So I put them there. And then I ran out. So I just put seed beads on the end. And you didn't notice, I could hardly find it in this grouping of beads. And then there's another one. I'm going to have to finish these off. I'm done. I don't have any more of these cubes, so I'm going to finish those off with the little 8 millimeters, the 1.8 millimeters. And then I'll finish that one off with I've got plenty of the 1.8 millimeters here. So divide your beads up, right? After you string the tassel, take half of the beads for the left-hand side and half the beads for the right-hand side, and you won't have to worry. But see, when it's all together, it's so not noticed. So I am not worrying about it a bit. So let me show you how I put all of this together, okay? So I grabbed, that's the 1.25 hammered ring that we have here. I use the white bronze. We also have the 1 inch. If you're like, you know what, Kate, this ring is too gigantor. I want to kind of, I love all of this, but I want to kind of ratchet the necklace down a little bit so it's a smaller size. You could go down to this 1 millimeter hammered piece, which will work just fine as well. You could also make it even a little bit daintier, maybe is the word, by using one of these teardrop segments components that we have. And you could just attach the tassel portions here and then attach all of your necklace strands here and then divide them in half and string out and out. So it just depends on what you want to do. Okay. But I use the 1.25 inch, the 1.25. So what I did was I got my 4 bundles of wax linen, and this has a ton you get 10 yards in your waxed linen bundle. Okay, so you've got plenty to work with. This is what I had left over here. So for the tassel section, what I did was I reeled off, let me make sure, I made these notes, but they're in my phone and my phone is filming, so I'm out of luck. So this was about a yard. This was a little over a yard. I think it was a yard and a half that I cut. Okay, so what I did, let me reel this off and make sure this is right. So here's my yard and a half right here. Let me cut it. And I kind of arbitrarily settled on this amount because I knew that I wanted my strands to be nice and long, so my tassels to be nice and long. So that's what I chose. So here's my ring, and here's my 1.5 yards of thread right here. Okay. And so this is 1.5 yard piece. Okay. And so is it 1.5? Let me just double check. No, it's actually a yard and a foot. So it's 4 feet, not a yard and a half. So it's a yard and a third. So this is folded in half. So this is a 2-yard length. Sorry about that, but I wanted to double check. And then what I did was I folded it in half, and then I folded it in half again. And I just made a lark's head knot with that loop. I put this through like so and tightened it down. And I wanted to make sure when I did this lark's head that everything was laying nice and flat, right? See how there's nothing twisted there or anything? It looks nice and clean. Okay, so this was ready to go, and then I had a nice long length to string with. Okay, like this. Now, then I just came in, and you can see this one is still doubled over, so I will clip it. Now, your waxed linen threads are waxed, right? So they're nice and easy to string on. So what I did was I put all colors across, right? Here, 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 and here, all 4. So I had 4, 8, 12, 16 strands of tassels going across in 4 lark's head knots. Okay, I just repeated this operation 3 more times. Then what I did literally was I started from the outside and worked my way across. So if this is my first tassel leg, and don't agonize over this, you guys, at all. Just jump in and do it. So I arbitrarily tied a knot to kind of act as a starting point, really, right? So that the beads wouldn't go past that point up towards the ring and start to bunch. So I just tied a knot. That one happens to land right there. So excellent. And I used those teal cubes, and I seem to have plenty of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of run my finger down. And I think I did them in blocks of 3, I guess. Mostly. There might be a few that are in blocks of 4. But I put those 3 on, slid them down, and then I left some space. And again, just arbitrarily made that loop, pulled the end of the thread through that loop, and tightened it so these beads traveled along it, right? And then did my next section. So I got 3 more. And I just kept stringing. And I strung until I liked the looks of the length of the thread, of the tassel leg, of the first tassel. And I didn't cut anything off really, or I strung a couple and checking kind of the length to make sure I liked it. Then I came in and I added the beads at the bottom, right? So I'll just put on one more little segment here and I'll show you how that will look. Come on, there we go. So string it as long as you want it to be, okay? Then what I did to finish it for the tassel, I made all of these the same. And again, you can see they're not all the same length. And there's a melon or an oval. And so there's 2 melons and 2 ovals. There it is. 2 melons and 2 ovals on each of the color block strands. So I'll get my hishi here. I only used 1 bag. I've got plenty left over. Okay. So I started with a cube. Then I put on 2 of the hishi, slide those on. Then I slid on a 5mm rondelle. There they are. They ended up all the way over there. I'm going to grab one. 5mm rondelles, the holes are pretty big. So here I kind of try and compact the end of the thread so it's nice and stiff, and then it'll sail right through that bead hole. Okay. Then I use the coiled spacer, which is one of my favorite all-time beads. Then I just alternated. I used an oval at the end of some and a drop at the end of the other. Okay, now and it doesn't matter if you've got a little bit of space here as well. You probably want a little bit of space. So I'm just going to slide that up, tie my knot, come in, tie it down, and there's the end of the tassel, bottom of the tassel right there. Okay, so then after I strung everything, I came in and just with my thread snips, but I'll use my wire cutters because I've got them here. I went in and I cut, just leaving a little bit of that tail. I didn't even glue that knot. Nothing's going to happen with that knot at all. So don't even stress. So you can see that leg is a little bit shorter, but you know, decide how you want it to go. Okay, so that will work. I see so many of you saying that your orders have arrived or that you made your order today. You know, we so appreciate those orders that you make with us. It really, really means a lot. Every time an order comes through, it makes our hearts so happy. So thank you for that. Then up here at the top, I struggled a little, not struggled, but I played around with how I was going to do this top portion. Okay, so I started putting these on in color blocks, right? I put a blue one and a teal one, and then on this side I was going to do the sage and the denim. And I thought, you know, that's too color blocky. It wasn't working. So that's when I just cut a long length. I cut, let me measure. I think this might be 2 yards. Next time I need to remember to take the notes off my phone before I do my broadcast, but whatever. It's again about 4 feet, right? So I would cut out of each of these, the 4 feet, put them together and do that same lark's head knot, right? So let me cut, I'm just going to cut short little pieces here because I want to show you how I did this. Because the 4 feet will give you some extra at the end. You can also cut for the necklace a little bit longer if you wanted a little bit longer. So maybe 1.5 yards on this one wouldn't be a bad idea. So you've got enough room for it for these. So I'd cut each of these maybe 1.5 yards, right? And oh, a big thank you. Let me say here, Sharon, you were watching Heather from Humble Beads on her Great Bead Extravaganza Takeover Day, and she was recommending getting leather from us at beadshop.com. Thank you so much. You know, if you don't know Heather Powers from Humble Beads, gosh, her beads, she's part of the Great Bead Extravaganza. Her polymer bead, everything she does, but her polymer beads, they are so charming. I just love them. I can't wait to see what she does. Great Bead Extravaganza is coming up in just a little over a week, so I can't wait to see what she does. But a big thank you, Heather, for that recommendation. So can you see how I put all of the strands kind of in a loop like this so they're flat? Doesn't that look pretty? Those colors are all together there. Makes me want to do some couching or stitch them down or something. I don't know. They're really pretty. Then they come in, they go through under the ring, and they just slide through, trying to keep all of those threads flat. So see, as I pull it, and it's not a, a have to, but I like it when I can tighten that up and see how the threads all sit nice and flat like that, and these are flanked with those dark blue ones. So I don't know, maybe just try and be a little decisive, I guess, when you do this. Just make them all flat. That's the main thing. They don't have to have kind of this crazy color gradations and stuff. So don't worry about that. Okay, but flat is what you want. And then you just come in and you start to string all of these on, right? So remember, the remainder of the beads that you have from your tassel, go ahead and split them in half so you don't run out like I did. Okay, and then you'll do this second side over here. All right, so then you end up, I'm going to have to work fast here. You end up, I can't even see it. Here we go, with all of your strands beaded and ready to go. So let me get my little things here. And as I bead, and I'm going to go at Kate's speed on these. Once in a while, though, I want to point out, you've got a cube that, I don't know, I didn't want to use it. It was cut off kind of funny, but I'm just going to put that one aside. But these little 1.8 millimeters, the bead is small, but the hole is big. So I put 3 on there, and see how I drew my fingers down the end of that wax to stiffen it. So those go on, and then I just kind of tie a knot on the thread, and I don't even notice kind of what I'm doing. I just make that little bit of a space, slide this down. Oh, it looks like I've done 4. You know what? I can't count. I did 4, so I'll add the 4th one there. They're hard to see once they're all jumbled together. I mean, you could also just mix these beads up. The strands, I thought that it would be fastest for me to string the strands individually with 1 bead per strand. But if you want to go ahead and mix those beads up, that's fine with me. This is your Odyssey adventure. right? So do what works for you. Again, these little patina iris beads, they add kind of a metallic flair to this, which I adore, right? Whoops, two of them fell off because I don't know why, they just did. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put 4 more on. That's the thing with this Odyssey project is that, you could just string it completely random. The number of beads could be completely random. But when they all sit together in a bunch, you're not going to notice any kind of missteps. So I'm not going to worry about it at all. Okay. So here it is. And so I'm going to stop. Maybe I'll do one more section. And then I'll stop. I know you guys are looking at my arm candy. I'm going to share that with you in just a second here. I'll show you. I unpacked. I am wearing my Kate's favorite bracelet. It needs a redo because I wore it so much that it's really starting to show its age. I finally unpacked the box where that jewelry was in. So I knew it was in there, but I hadn't had it in so long. So I'm really excited to have it back on my wrist. Here's one where I kind of ran out of cubes, right? And I have just some random cubes left over. So I could also string it with seed beads, but I'm going to go ahead and just string a few random cubes here at the end. They're going to blend right in. And I'm going to just leave maybe just a touch more thread in between than I normally would. I think I need one more section of cubes. And then I'm not going to worry about it, right? But you're going to, the remainder of the beads left over from the tassel, you're going to go ahead and split those so that your sides will be even. Let me do this one. And then we're going to talk about closure. We're going to give this some closure. Let me do 3 more here. 2 and 3. Okay, so there we go. And I'll tie a knot here so they don't fall off. Okay. So, here we go. Let's talk about the ending, the closure here. So I want to do the button on one end and I'm going to do the loop on the other. So this does have a front in my view. I want the lark's head knots that I've done to show on the front. So I'm going to put the button over here on the right hand side of my necklace and I'm going to put the loop on the left hand side. Okay. And this length, I'm not going to obsess too much about the length for this, but when you do, what you want to do is measure it. This is going to be, I beaded about 10 inches. You can't see that. About 10 inches, just shy, maybe between 9.5 and 10. But I'm going to put my button on next and bring these strands back over. So this beaded section, about 10 inches. Okay, Janice is wanting to see the back side of the lark's head. So the back side of the lark's head knot looks like this, which is also fine. I don't mind it, but I think that this is more attractive for the front, just in my view. So you decide what works for you. So the button that I have chosen, if I can find it, here we go. It's the Monstera button. Okay, so this Monstera button has a pretty big shank. Okay, so I think I could get all of these wax linen strands through there. Okay, but let's pretend that you're using a button that may not be able to go through all the way. So I'll take 4 of my strands here. 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 right here. And I'll put them through. And also, you don't want the shank of the button to be too full of thread. Anyway, you need this button to kind of move around a bit, right? If it's too tight in there, you're not going to have any movement. And when your necklace doesn't have any movement, that's when all kinds of things can go awry, right? It'll be a weak point at your piece. So then the rest of these, right, that I have kind of not put with these, I'm going to just bring those strands back around. And I'm going to, it's a good thing I used 2 strands here. I've got 2 strands. They're nice and long, and they match. You could do this with 2 different colors of thread too. But you want to make sure that everything is kind of even, that nothing else is, that nothing is kind of scooting out the sides or anything like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to get my clamper, which I had here a moment ago. Isn't it funny when we're creating, right? Everything goes everywhere, doesn't it? Oh, it's right here on the box in front of me. I'm going to clamp all of this down. So see how I've got the button. I could just slide that button up. But I want to wedge that clamper in there so that all of this is kind of acting like one. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this around because I want to macrame down the side here. And see how I'm using these 2 loose strands, the tails of these loose strands. Okay. And I'm just going to come in. I'm going to make my first macrame loop here, going to the left, bringing this other strand over to the right. Let me get a little tighter down here. Underneath that center and up through that loop. The first one's going to be a little precarious because you want to get everything sitting right. I'm pulling it to make sure it's nice and even. And so here's my first knot. Now I'm going to come in and pretty quickly come in and do my second. Now see how all of those are controlled now, right? Up, go through, and tighten. There we go. Now we can really go to town, and I'm going to go to town and just macrame. I'm going to do this in Kate speed. I could do this doubled. I could hold the wax linen doubled. I still have 2 strands out here, right? And I could make it multicolored, right, if I wanted to. Let me bring those in. I know that my first 2 were plain, but let's see how 2 look. So I'm just going to incorporate those 2 as if they were always there. Bring it in. And I'm going to macrame that loop close. Now you could silk wrap instead. You could use a metal crimp. When you macrame with the wax linen, you want to make sure that everything is nice and flat and kind of even, and that you're pulling both sides or both tails of the threads kind of at the same time, so they compact down at an even rate. But there you go. There's my first one. That doesn't look too bad. So see how I automatically with my hands flatten everything so it's like it's one thread. This angle is kind of funny. Let me get that in the center. Looks a little bit better. So let me do it again, and treat them as though they're one. So if they want to kind of pull apart just stiffen them up by running your hands down it, your fingers, running it through your fingers. There are those two. And I'll come in and I'll tighten that. Okay. Now I can I need this weighted, so I'm going to keep that clamp on there. I'm going to keep going. I kind of like it a little bit heavier, and I kind of like the multicolor. So you could add, like, let's say, you make this and you're like, okay, the tails are too short for me to do this with. Then all you would do is you just add another thread. Okay. So here's the button side. The button side's almost done. Now the opposite side, we're going to use a loop, just a regular button and loop for the closure. Okay, so let me get this here. But to finish this off, what I want to do, I'm going to get rid of the clamp. I'm going to take a look at my loop. I've got a little bit more to go, so I'm going to do maybe just one more set of knots, because the knots are pretty big. Okay, here. And Janice is also saying that you could use your Ceylon with this. You definitely could. You don't have to use the wax linen. Here's my glue. I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. Gosh, my glue is a mess. Let me squeeze a little bit out on my baggie if I can. And see if I can attach it with, or put it on with a toothpick here. Nope, this glue. It's time for this glue to go to glue heaven. I'll grab some glue, but I'll show you where I'm going to add it. I'm going to get my GS Hypo and I'm going to add just a little bit right here, and here, and I'm going to macrame over the top and then glue that down. Okay, then I'll let it sit. I'll glue it here and here, there and there, and then I'll cut these tails away. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit though for just a second. All right, now on this side, this is the loop side. So this I'm going to attack just a little bit differently. Okay, so I'm going to bring all of these together. Okay, like this. And I want to make sure that everything is even. Let me pull this up so you can see. Right? Then instead of, because this loop, I'm going to have to macrame, I don't know, at least an inch, about an inch here. And I don't have enough of any of these strands to macrame that long. So what I'm going to do is, what color do I want to use? I guess I use that color, so maybe I'll use this color over here. And I don't know, a couple of feet, reel off a couple of feet, right? And then I'm just going to jump in and start here. I'm actually going to clamp this bottom here to the board. The rest of this necklace is weighted pretty well, so I'm not going to worry about that too much, but I need these strands to not be saucy. I should, I did this double on that side. Maybe I'll do no, I know what I'm going to do. Bear with me here. Just bear with me. I'm going to start a little bit higher because I'm going to leave a little bit of space. Can you tell that I don't plan this out beforehand and trust that the bead muse will visit me when I'm live on air? Let me get this to the center though. but I did just have an aha moment, so bear with me here. I want to make sure that my strands are flat-ish, that they're not too twisted under this macrame that I'm going to make. And I'm going to go up here maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so. It's still, my goal here is to have this macrame section that I'm going to make be the same length. The loop is going to be a little bit longer because it has to go around the button, but not that much longer. Okay, but I'm going to start this macrame up about right here, and you're going to see why. Okay, so I'm going to macrame as fast as I can here. There we go. That one's in. And we're going to go for it. I'm not using a doubled strand here because I don't want this macrame loop to be too bulky. Okay, so that's why I'm using a single. Let me see, do I have another clip here? I do. Let me clip this down here just a bit. There we go. So things are fairly tight-ish, though it's moving around a little bit. Okay. Now this is just the plain flat macrame knot. I could also have done this closure with a different thread. I could have used Chinese knotting cord. I could have used Ceylon, but I figured since this whole thing is in wax linen, I'd just go for the wax linen. You could also braid all of these together, but you need to bring them together somehow so that they form a loop. You could also do a, whoops, I'm going off the screen here. There we go. You could also do the silk wrap as well. And we do have, Robin just asked, do you have a tutorial for the flat macrame? I do. If you go to our skill builders on beadshop.com, they're listed there on how to do that flat macrame knot. And I did a broadcast, and I think it's linked there as well, where I did 5 different kind of basic macrame knots that we use all the time in our bead shop projects. So they're pretty easy for you to find. But essentially we do that loop. I'm going to the left, the loop, the right hand side comes over this tail from the left. I go under that and under my center strand, back up through that loop and tighten. And then I reverse it the other way. My loop coming over my center strands, my left hand side over that tail, under the center strands, and up and out through that loop. So I'm just repeating that, going to the left and then to the right. Also notice I'm running out of thread a little bit. I cut 2 feet, not enough. Go ahead and cut yourself 3 feet and you should be good. I'm going to go ahead and see, well, I'm close. I know this isn't going to quite be the right amount. So I need at least 1 inch, maybe 1 1.25 inches, because this macrame is a little wide, right? So I need a little bit more space here. Let me do 3 more sets, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to close it off to make everything match kind of visually. Okay, let's see if this loop is going to be big enough. Yeah, I've run out. So I'm going to come in, and again, it's a little stiff, so I don't want it to be too, it'll loosen up as you wear it. The wax is going to kind of dissipate a bit. But let me see. Yes, that is perfect. So let me measure this so you can see that length. Okay. That length is 1.5 inches. Almost on the money. Okay. So now I bring this around and I've got all this business here. Okay. If I had some that were long enough to close this off, let's see if I do. I have a blue one here, and they don't have to match. Maybe I just get my longest ones. Here's my blue ones. Here's another blue one, and here's a denim one. I think those are the colors that I used. Let me get it from behind over here. There we go. That can just go right inside with that one. And so I've got this teal one over here, and then these two over here. I think this will be long enough. So now I need to set this up. Here's my loop. Okay. So I need a little holding cord so that everything is going to hold together nicely. I just have a piece of Chinese knotting cord here that I can loop through. Because again, for successful macrameing, I need to get everything nice and tight. So here's this, and I'm going to macrame it down. So let me turn this so it's to the side. I'm going to come up from the back, so all of these strands are up from behind. So all of these are behind here. And I'm going to attach this to my board. Okay. Let me see here. I wasn't getting a good charge. Bear with me for just a second. I don't want my phone to go out at the time. Let me see if I can replug this in at the big moment here. Technology is always, let's see, that might have done it. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm connecting this up here like this. I have this coming down. The necklace hopefully will weight everything. And I'm going to bring these two strands out to the right, the long one, the long blue one, and then my other two longest ones over here. Now, if everything is too short, you can just add some threads to do this with, okay? Now I'm just going to come in, and you can see the side view. I'm going to macrame to bring all of these together. So I'll start with the right-hand side, go under all of it, and that first loop is always a little persnickety. So I want to make sure that when I pull everything, that everything's going to sit correctly. There we go, just like that. Okay. Now I'll go to this side, and the goal here is to have this section of this chunky macrame match this section that I did here, or close enough anyway. So see, remember that one I did, it's a little bit bigger, right? A little bit more heavy duty. So I'm going to probably come to about right here, and it'll be close enough visually. And then I would finish it off the exact same way. I'm going to add a little bit of glue, macrame over that glue to close it up, then do a final little gluing. Let everything sit 24 hours. And then I will clip away my extra thread. Okay. And I'm going to stop here because I need to go grab some glue, but I'll do that. I'll do that off camera. But I'll tie another couple, but before I do that, I'll add a little bit of glue here to that base and then macrame over it so it glues the threads. And then right in my last one, when I tie it, I'll add a little bit of glue here, a little bit of glue here, tie it closed, glue it with my GS Hypo cement like so, and let it sit, and then cut away my extra strands. And that's it. That's all she wrote. Now, if I wanted to add some dangles, which I thought I did, but these are a little bit short for dangles, and I don't know how great the dangles are going to look in the back. But I could tie actually some more thread on and do a counterbalance dangle like that if I wanted. But you can see how this will just sit there and be the closure. Okay, like this. And so that's it. So I will have this finished and it'll be photographed and up on the web so you can see the finished project map for that. But let's just put those to the side so you can see that there. And you can see that this, I'm going to close this up just, whoops, no, you can't see it. I'm going to close this up just a little bit more so that the loop for the button isn't super floppy. But you can see that Monstera button. Let me get this a little bit here. Okay. So what Robin's saying, let me address that question because some of you might have this question as well. She's saying she loves this. It's her favorite color. She doesn't wear necklaces, so I want to try making a bracelet. I think it's over my head. Can you give me a rough estimate about how long the thread should be? So if I were doing a bracelet with this, go to our Odyssey section, Robin, in on the website on beadshop.com. And what we did was, let me see if I can grab one. I'll let you guys look at that and I'll illustrate it. Let me go grab one so you can see it. The cool thing about the original Odyssey projects are that you can wear them as a necklace or you can wrap them as a bracelet. And Janice did those original designs and they look just terrific. Let me grab, let's see, there's this one. And then I'll bring them back. This is so you guys can see them on the camera. This is pretty easy here. Whoops, it's kind of, now of course, I grabbed one that's a little tangly. And let me grab this one for you. Okay, let's take a look at these. So the way that the Odysseys are made, there's, oh no, this one actually isn't a great one. Sorry, I'll be back on camera in just 2 shakes. Bear with me here. Let me get this one. This will be a good one to show you. So you can wear them, as I said, as a bracelet or, a double wrap bracelet, or you can do it as a necklace. So the project is over on beadshop.com. And here we go. Let me show you these. And it'll be pretty easy for you to follow. So let me get rid of our necklace here for a second and show you these original Odyssey ones. This was one that we did a while back, and it's all kind of that single color here. And you start, I'd have to look at the instructions because I cannot remember. We may start with the button. I think we always start with the button. Macrame it down like so, and then start to just string it up, right? So you would just, if you just want this to wrap twice, I think this is bracelet length. Maybe this wraps like 3 times around. Looks like it does, right? So it could be super luscious like this, or you could wear it just once as a bracelet. But if you're just doing bracelet length like this, let's say that your bracelet needs to be door to door about 7 inches or 7.5 inches. I would cut so you have plenty of thread to work with. I would cut at least with the knots and everything, I'd cut yourself 18 inches. That's a lot of thread, right? But you'll have plenty to work with. You could also, though, if you're doubling it over, this one isn't doubled. You can see there are the little dangles come down here, and then the rest of the threads come here. But you could do this with a double strand, right? So I'd have my two strands like this, my button would go over there, and then you'd have those doubled strands. So if I did that, I would cut probably, maybe I'd do a yard, bend it over, find the center, and then just go along so you've got plenty. And then 1 yard per every 2 strands, if that makes sense, right? Okay. This one, I don't think, though, was doubled. These ends just came around, macrame closed, and then these strands came down to be strung. Okay. But so I would you've got plenty of wax linen in these. You can see I've got plenty left over. So you could, just cut a lot of thread. But for a bracelet, I would go at least 24 inches. With this one, what I did here was, I think these were actually, and Janice is saying that same thing. I think these were actually started with the loop. And can you see this loop is the Ceylon here? Macrame, 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 that loop, just like I did on that end. I bring these together with the macrame like so. Then I've got all of these strands here ready to go and string. And there's an original handout. Gita just linked the handout that we have for this project. Not all of our projects have handouts, but this Odyssey one has. You can go and download it and then kind of make your adjustments accordingly, whatever works for you. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I started with 5 long strands here. This was one that I showed on Beads, Baubles, and Jewels, I believe. I did this one with Katie Hacker's show. It was kind of fun to do. So again, you can mix up I use shadows and stuff on this one. So you can just decide what works with this. And this could wrap multiple times as a bracelet or just a single time as a necklace. So I'm going to put this, this is so you can adapt this project. You can see that Janice and I both, with her Rainbow Odyssey and this one that I did that I'm calling Miami, it can really just adapt to whatever technique you're liking. I'm trying to get this on before I show you here. There we go. So yeah, we've got the classic Odyssey. We've got so many, but you could go through and figure out what works for you. Watch the demos. Yeah, I like this. I like the way that where this sits. Like this should come up a little bit more maybe here, but I love this brace, or this tassel here. This is the 4-ply wax linen. But again, you could do it with CKC, the 0.4 millimeter. You could do it with the regular Ceylon, even the fine Ceylon, whatever thread you love will work. So I promised you, people were asking for they want to see my earrings, and I want to show you a couple of other things here as well. So I'm going to be doing, these are earrings I made, oh gosh, 1 billion years ago. These I think I did back when we had the brick and mortar store, beadshop.com, way back in the day. And I would teach a lot of different chain classes. So this is a chainmail earring that I made here like this. You can see the back, so it doesn't have those dangles on it. It's actually done this way. Can you see that in this diamond pattern? And then I dangle it this way so it lays kind of like this. So I think I keep saying that I'm going to show you some chain, to do some chain, right? And so I will. I think this is a fun one. Doing chainmail is not overly difficult. It takes a little bit of practice, right? But I think you guys will love it. So I had these on my desk, so I just threw them on my ears. I added some little wire wrapped briolets to the front of this just to make it kind of interesting. So that's what these guys are. Now on my wrist, you see I'm wearing my Kate's Favorite. Found it after I unpacked some jewelry boxes. It's actually in pretty good shape considering I wear it all the time and it gets wet and stuff. You can see it, I might have a little bit of a piece there that's coming apart, but since this is infinity stitched, I think if I just clip that, no one would ever notice. But it might be time to restring this guy, but I love it. You've got these two pieces that I did for the Great Bead Extravaganza a while back, right? This tube bangle that I did, and this bangle here with the peyote stitch. This one in the center. Okay, this is what I want to show you. And it has two more mates. This is going to be my Great Bead Extravaganza. You've seen me do this here on Beadshop. I did it very briefly. It's a bracelet that we call Expedition. All right. And you're always asking for kits. These will be kits. There are kits available. And the kits, we're actually releasing the kits a little bit early this time. Whoops, I knew that my that my phone would conk out, so I'll show you here. We do have the kits available, and they're going to drop tomorrow. Today is Wednesday, March 30th. They're going to drop tomorrow on Thursday, March 31st. We've got a bunch in stock, but if you want them, don't delay. I've got 3 different colorways. I've got this one with the champagne flat leather. These are all flat leathers that we don't carry right now. It's this flat leather, the champagne color. This one, it's hard to see, but you can kind of see how that leather is embossed there. And I'm using gunmetal chain, this gunmetal we haven't carried, but I have it in the kit. And then I have this leather, it's called Plum, but it's more of a burgundy. And then there's that really nice dark purple leather that's on there. I've got a beautiful new clasp on the back, just a super nice plain clasp. The Great Bead Extravaganza is coming up. It's going to be in the newsletter, so you can watch for it. It's coming up not this weekend, but next weekend. Preview night is April. Let me make sure I get the date right. Preview night is April 8th, Friday, April 8th. And then on the Great Bead Extravaganza page on the 9th and the 10th, all of the participating businesses are going to be showing and doing live broadcasts. Mine is going to be on Saturday, April 9th, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. We'll put that in the newsletter and stuff, so you don't have to write it down or, commit it to memory today. So don't worry about that. You can also go over to the Great Bead Extravaganza page here on Facebook and join the group, and you'll see everything there. But these are going on early. We're dropping them early. Okay, so we can get these guys out to you. You may or may not have them in time for the broadcast, but the broadcasts will be archived, so you can watch it again when you want to make your bracelet. And I would recommend the first time watching the video, not making it along with me until you watch the whole thing, in case I screw up, and then I change it. Okay, so you can always find, we'll get these kits out to you as fast as we can. Just depends on, how fast the post office gets them to you. But the broadcasts for all of these, including the ones that we do here at Beadshop, best place to find them, let me use that as a segue and tell you, the best place to find all of our broadcasts and our videos, if you go to beadshop.com on our YouTube channel, hit that like and subscribe and notification button so you won't miss any of our broadcasts. They're all archived under videos, so you can just peruse by date. And a lot of our projects on beadshop.com have that direct link to the YouTube video, so you can see it there. You can also join the bead table over on our Facebook group. And make sure, you guys, that when you join our Facebook group, there are some questions there. And I need you to answer all of those questions. So please take a moment when you're joining the group, take a look at the rules, agree to the group guidelines, and then hit submit. Okay? And I do let people in about once a week. So if you've just pushed that join button and you're waiting, it just means that I haven't gotten around to approving members. But don't worry, I get there, and we'll love to have you over there in our Facebook group. And of course, you can like and subscribe to us on our Instagram. If you do make any projects with Beadshop product, or if you do any of our projects and you put them on Instagram, go ahead and give us a tag. We'd love to add them to our Instagram stories. And of course, we so appreciate you watching. You can find the information on the project that I did today called Miami. You can find the project and the products right over on beadshop.com. Make sure and sign up for our newsletter, especially you guys, if you want to see this kit drop for the Expedition bracelets. They are limited in quantity, so if you see them and you like them and you want them, don't sit on it, right? But you can go to the Expedition. There, I have a project page up, and you can also just kind of select your own things for it as well. So, and you'll also see the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products come up for us. So thank you again, everyone. We so appreciate. I see all of you guys. It's exciting to see all of you all here. It's great to see you. Yes, Michelle is saying she's made quite a few. We've put them up on our social. Michelle, your Expedition bracelets are gorge. I just love them, love them, love them. So that's my story. I am sticking to it. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed our Miami project. We'll have this finished, the photography finished and up, so you can follow along on the project map. I will see you on Friday. I am revisiting one of Emily's favorite projects that we call Entwined. We also like to call it 3D macrame, but it's a fun little quickie bracelet that I think you all are going to enjoy. And then next week, we'll gear up for the Great Bead Extravaganza. It starts preview night, April 8th, goes the 9th and the 10th. Thank all you all so much for joining me and watching today, because without you guys out there, we here would not be able to do what we do, which is create and share all of these bead ideas with you. So thanks again, and I'll see all you all on Friday. Thanks, everybody.